Gentlemen, Stacey Abrams. Good day, madam. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
How are you this morning?
I'm doing okay. On my way to Statesboro.
What's happening in Statesboro today?
We'll be having another rally, and we're going to be in Brunswick, Midway. We're traveling the state. We're rallying voters and getting things done.
Let's talk about some of the policy dynamics, especially as it relates to black male voting in America and in Georgia in particular. So obviously the numbers are record-breaking. Early vote numbers have shattered all the records. As of yesterday, or day before yesterday, it looked to be 400,000 plus as far as increased voting for this time frame. Tell us about that emphasis on black male voting and how has that correlated to your campaign and your platform?
Well, as you know, I am the only candidate who has consistently appeared on black radio in Atlanta and across the state, including on WAOK in this campaign. I'm the only candidate who has invested in black radio since the start of my campaign and in black media, including with your company. And I'm the only candidate who has consistently treated the black voter with the respect is due, especially black men. We have held more than 50 events and refused to take that support for granted, and we are seeing the results. By addressing difficult topics and offering very concrete plans and not showing up in October, but instead showing up year round. And in this campaign, showing up everywhere, we are seeing record-breaking turnout across the state. And part of that is the fact that I've been not only having conversations, I've been having intentional investment in the black community. And what we are seeing is the result of that type of deliberate engagement. I'm talking about education from cradle to career, making certain that technical college is once again free in the state of Georgia, expanding access to hope because black students are the least likely to get hope and the most likely to lose it, making sure that we are not hardening our schools in ways that will make it more difficult for young black men to actually matriculate, because we know that when schools are hardened, black children, especially black boys, are treated to harsher disciplinary standards. The plan for investment in our black businesses. My opponent has said that he essentially doesn't have a plan for it. I intend to be the Maynard Jackson of Georgia and to take the $10 billion in resources that will come to the state and make certain that they are equitably distributed through contracting to small businesses, especially black-owned businesses. I'm going to expand Medicaid and make certain that the 40% of people who do not have health care who are African American get health care in the state of Georgia. And so across the board, across every issue, I'm the only candidate who has been thoughtful, intentional, and consistent in my conversations.
Let's talk about a dynamic we discussed at a forum that you and I did together a few weeks ago. And this was at a property in Southwest Atlanta. Black business owners came together, and we were talking about your plan to make sure that there's equitable access to contracting for the state of Georgia. A few years ago, I broke an article that said Georgia has no love for minority contractors, and it highlighted the reality that less than 1% of actual prime contractors are African American in the state. We're not talking about subcontractors. We're talking about prime. When I posed the question to you, I said, how could you change that? And you said you can basically change that on day one. Expand on that method of how you would transform the dynamic of no minority mandates in the state of Georgia or minority inclusion mandates. How would you change that being governor?
So the state of Georgia, like many states, has prohibitions against quota systems. But procurement policies are entirely it's the responsibility of the governor. One of the ways to address this is to make certain that instead of limiting quotas, you address the challenges that black businesses face, first and foremost by acknowledging that I want economic parity in the state of Georgia. And if you want economic parity, if the population is 33% of the state, then they should have more than 1% of the contract. Number two, you address what is known basically as bundling of contracts. That is that if you're bidding as a prime, you've got to bid on an entire job. Even if the job only requires 2 trucks, you have to prove that you have 100 trucks, which disqualifies most companies. And that's just an example. But if you debundle the contract, I call them cluster contracts, you allow more people to compete at smaller levels for chunks of those contracts. That can be done through procurement changes. You don't have to have legislation. Number three, it is about making sure that small businesses have access to capital. They are 7 times less likely to get the capital investment that they need. Georgia has programs on the books that never get funded. I intend to put $10 million into a small business investment fund, but I also intend to leverage the existing contracting opportunities in the state of Georgia. This governor just did a report. He discovered that there were inequities in minority contracting in July, and he released a report this week. And that report basically says, oh yeah, we don't do it right. But he offers not a single prescription. I not only can offer you prescriptions, I can offer you proof that I know what I'm doing. With procurement when I was deputy city attorney for the city of Atlanta. I know federal law, I know state law, I know procurement law, and I'm the only candidate who has consistently not only described what we can do, but explained how, as governor of Georgia, I can be the Maynard Jackson, meaning that we can leverage without fail and without delay, putting money into the pockets of black-owned businesses as prime, sub, and as purchasing agents for the state of Georgia.
Let's talk about a dynamic that's recent. I sit on the board of directors for Piedmont Hospital. We're already feeling the impact of Atlanta Medical Center closing. Atlanta Medical Center, established for more than 100 years. It is actually the 6th hospital to close under the current governor. If you were governor, and I'm not talking about in the future, I'm talking about if you were governor for the last 4 years, what policies would you have implemented that would have stopped these massive closures in the state of Georgia?
Expansion of Medicaid is about bringing home funding for healthcare. Let's understand what Medicaid is. Most people think of Medicaid as insurance for really, really poor people. And that is the traditional program. And in Georgia, it is a miserly program. If you make more than $6,700 a year, you have to make less than $6,700 a year, and you have to be disabled, a senior citizen, or a parent with a dependent child. That's it. Those are the only people who qualify. But Medicaid expansion dollars are a vast sum of money put in place by President Obama that actually pours money into communities that need health insurance. This is for people who are self-employed, people who make $9 an hour or less. But it's also $12 billion that goes into our hospitals because right now, who get sick can go to a hospital, but they don't have the ability to pay. If you give those very same people health insurance, one, the hospitals get reimbursed for the services, but two, fewer people go directly to the hospital, and instead they see primary care physicians, they see nurse practitioners, they see doctors. And so we have to think about Medicaid expansion as a pot of money to which we are entitled, that this governor has refused for 4 years, and that this administration, following its predecessor, refused for a decade. We put in $30 billion.
Okay. We have a technical issue. I do know Lita Abrams is traveling. Stacey, are you able to hear me?
I can.
You went out for a minute. Go ahead. Stacey, you went out for the last probably 10 seconds.
Oh, I was just saying that we know that Georgia has forfeited $30 billion in money that could be given in health insurance, but also in money to our hospitals. And so this isn't magic. It's math. And it's math that has worked in 38 other states.
It is so interesting because when people agree with that policy, I have to remind them, you do realize you're paying for other states to receive a benefit you will not. Those taxes are still coming from you to fund these operations in other states, but not in the state of Georgia, where you live and where your family lives. Let me bring up something that I thought was really interesting during your last debate with the governor. Abortion, a woman's right to choose, those who would deny a woman's right to a medical procedure. It came up during the debate. And it was fascinating that in this debate, the current governor would not state clearly if he would sign new abortion limits into law. It's already egregious what we currently have. But the potential of it becoming more egregious was just baffling to me, not only politically, but ethically. Give us your sentiment, your belief as to why the current governor and other Republican leaders throughout the country are not willing to say, this is as far as I will go on this policy.
Because Brian Kemp does not believe in exceptions. Brian Kemp does not believe in contraception in all cases. He does not believe in IVF. For a lot of women, that's going to be very difficult. But let's be clear about what he said. He didn't say he wouldn't sign it. He said he just didn't know how bad it was, so he was very clear that he would sign additional restrictions. He just didn't want to articulate what those restrictions would be. We know that he has praised the Texas system that pays people to spy on their neighbors and gives them $10,000 for reporting women for reproductive health care. We know that he has said that exceptions for rape and incest are not things he agrees with. We know that he understands that women will be investigated for miscarriage, and he doesn't care. In fact, he lied to the people of Georgia by saying it wasn't so, and it is. 52 different counties have said they believe they're going to have to investigate women. That is a fairly large sum in the state of Georgia. But let's be very clear. Brian Kemp thinks that Herschel Walker is entitled to his privacy, but women are not. He believes Herschel Walker is entitled to pay for abortions, but women are not entitled to receive them. The hypocrisy of Brian Kemp on housing, on health care, on a woman's right to choose, on gun violence is astonishing. He is the most consistent hypocrite I have seen in the last 20 years.
Let's talk about your Let's Get It Done tour. You all have been blazing the state of Georgia. I've been following this from Atlanta to Jonesboro, College Park, and then we go to Americus, Albany, Fort Valley, Union City, Augusta, Sandy Springs, obviously Decatur, where it's greater, Riverdale, McDonough, Savannah, Statesboro, Brunswick, Midway. This state has 159 counties. Looks like you are going to all of them. Tell us what you're hearing from everyday people on the campaign trail about living in Georgia and having access to equitable remedies for whatever problems they face.
For most Georgians, they want to do well and they're willing to work at it.
Yeah.
But they are not given opportunities. They are not given access. And the conversations I've had have been remarkably consistent. They want more education and better education for their children. They want access to health care, especially in communities south of I-20 or south of the Nat Line, and they're not getting it. They want housing that is affordable, and this is a statewide crisis. When I was in Albany, they were having 5 foreclosures a day. In Valdosta, it was 11. And that is in part because this governor has not only refused to deploy $400 million currently sitting in a Georgia bank account for this purpose. He this week shut down the portal so people can't even ask for help anymore. This is the same governor who sent out the faulty $350 bribe cards for those who were poor and they couldn't spend the money. And he is blaming them for the money not being there. Brian Kemp does not care. And that is the most universal truth that people understand. But they want to know that there is something possible. And what has been both heartening and concerning is that people want to see better, but they don't know that better is available. And the point of this campaign, the point of my work for the last 4 years, the last 15 years, is to overcome the poverty of imagination in Georgia. We don't lack resources. We lack leadership. We lack leaders who are willing to invest in us. And it is the governor of Georgia who will determine whether we spend $6.6 billion funding these Georgians yet again, or if we're going to take that money and invest in our communities. And we can do so without raising a dime in taxes. We don't have to raise it now. We don't have to raise it in 4 years. We don't have to raise it in 10 years. I have an economic plan that has been vetted by state economists and by MIT. And what I am proposing, not only will it work, it will lift every Georgian. And they want that. They just have to believe we deserve it. And that is why I am so excited about the record turnout we're seeing. I'm excited about the record turnout among African Americans. But I'm also excited about the fact that whether we are in Altoona or Albany, Georgians want more and they want better. And this is the way we get it.
My people in Albany rant and rave about you all the time. I was actually born in Albany, Georgia. And there's an interesting connection with some of your background and your parents that I share. And I'm going to highlight some things you've done as a citizen, not governor. You paid off the medical debt of 68,000 Georgians. You raised funds to provide $1,000 checks to 100,000 families in need. You helped expand access to COVID-19 testing and vaccines, especially in rural Georgia, where it was extremely problematic. You advocated for Medicaid expansion for 500,000 plus Georgians. and the creation of 60,000 plus jobs. This is all without having a government position, ladies and gentlemen. I need you to understand that. And in her, one of her businesses, she helps other businesses, small businesses in particular, like mine, receive the financing that they need to stay afloat. So your parents, Stacey, United Methodist ministers connected to the United Methodist Church. I used to be a United Methodist youth pastor. In the United Methodist Church, we have a philosophy of social responsibility. How does that background and the ministry background correlate to your current values as a leader in politics?
My parents raised me to do three things: go to church, go to school, and take care of each other. My faith is how I organize my approach, that my faith is a shield to protect, not a sword to strike people down, that education never ends, and that you can lose your job and you can lose your house, but no one can take what's in your mind, and that taking care of each other is more than taking care of your family. It is taking care of the family of God, taking care of community. And it is what I do. It's what I do whether I have a title or not. And it is why, I'm happy to be on the show today, but it was why it was so disturbing to me to hear that you had suggested that I wasn't talking to black people in Georgia, that I wasn't.
Oh, let me be. Wait a minute. Hold on, Stacey. No, Stacey, I'm going to respond to that specifically.
No, if you can let me finish my sentence.
Oh, I absolutely will.
Respond to.
Stacey, I'm going to say, hold on, Stacey. In all due respect, Leader Abrams, I've been the host of this show for 7 years, and I'm going to say something as host of the program because my statement was true. Stacey Abrams had not come on this show during this election cycle. I'm going to say something else that's true. I sent you a direct text message, including a text message to your entire team. We reached out 7 times. Now, you brought this up. I didn't want to bring this up. I reached out 7 times. I have all of the emails from my production team. Every single email is documented. I reached out to you personally and said exactly what happened. A caller called in and said, why have you not been on this show? I said, we reached out to the team. The team has not responded to schedule Stacey Abrams for the show. That's a statement of fact, Stacey. I love you and I support you and I endorse you. But that's a statement of fact.
Rashad, we've had this issue before. And the reason I wanted to raise this is that I've also gotten texts. I've also gotten emails. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to be very clear that I got one text from you regarding coming on the show. One text to me directly. One. Every time you have reached out to me, I have responded. The one text I got from you, I pushed it to my team and I'm on the show. And the problem I have.
But Stacey, I only texted you after they were unresponsive.
Mr. Richey, Rashad.
Please let her finish.
Hold on, wait a minute. Hold on.
If you will allow me to finish, I allowed you to finish.
I absolutely will. I don't know why you decided to do it this way. I have no idea. But I'm going to now provide the receipts of all the times we reached out to your team. You are a candidate. Rashad, I'm not going to reach out to you until it is absolutely dire.
Rashad.
Yes.
You and I have known each other for many years.
Yes.
And the reason I'm doing this is because I'm getting text messages right now about why I haven't done this. And my point was that I wanted to clarify that while I may not have been on this program directly, I've been on WAOK. I've been on every black radio station available. And I was actually leading into a compliment to you, if you had allowed me to finish my statement, that while we may not have always agreed on the timing, I appreciated the fact I appreciate the fact that you have given me this platform to have this conversation, because what people heard, what you intended to say, what people heard was that I was not willing to have conversations with black radio.
Never said that.
I was trying to clarify. You and I both know people hear what they hear. So that's why I was trying, you let me finish my sentence a few minutes ago. That's what I was trying to say, that while that may be what people heard, I was going to say, I appreciate the fact that you were willing to have me on the show, to have this conversation, and to have such a thoughtful conversation, because it is important for people to know that for me, conversations like this is how we make change. It is how we move the needle. And it is important that we have these conversations. And that while there may have been some semblance of disagreement that led to a conversation with your radio host, with your listeners. I was appreciative of the fact that you allowed me to have this conversation with you. That's what I was about to say.
Thank you, and I appreciate that.
You allowed me to finish my sentence. I was not trying to turn this, but it is important. People have been not only hearing things, but misrepresenting and repeating things. And you and I both know, because this happened to me in 2018, there was a Divine Nine event that people started saying things that were not true. And you and I had to have a conversation about what was being said versus what actually happened. And I don't want that to happen again. We are 4 days from victory. We are 4 days from destiny. And there should be no daylight between those who want better for our people at all. And that is why I wanted to be on this show this morning, and why I wanted to say very clearly that I have been on Black radio. I will continue to be on Black radio, but there's a lot of Black radio in the state. As you pointed out, 159 counties.
Yes.
And there's a Black radio station for every person.
Yes.
And so while this show had not made it onto my list, it is not for lack of engagement. It was an issue of timing. And I was thanking you for making the time and allowing me this opportunity. That was my point.
And I appreciate that. And I submit that the issue was with scheduling. And I said that during the show. And I was very clear that we had reached out. I'm not going to lie to my listeners when they call in and say, why hasn't she been on the show? Well, we sent out the invites. We sent out 7 invites that I can document. And we have not had a response to schedule Stacey Abrams for the program. But I also mentioned that you and I did a live forum together in front of business leaders in this state. But I want to read this so that it is clear for the record. I have if you want to keep doing this, I would prefer we just stop this right now. No, I'm going to read this. You don't, Stacey. Well, I appreciate you, and I know you got campaigning to do.
I'm going to go ahead and have to. I do, and I would just ask that we not accept those actions in this and trying to close the loop. No,
it's all good. I'm going to read this statement. I love you, sister. Okay. I'm going to read the statement, but I appreciate you being on the show. All right, so here's the statement. Good morning. Multiple callers called in today to complain that you haven't been on the show yet for this cycle. We did send various requests over several months, but no response. I can only assume that the team has not prioritized this. But since every statewide Democratic candidate has scheduled with us, it's starting to look like a slight to listeners. I think this is an easy fix. I have relayed to Michael and Mo, which are the campaign operatives. I even offered to pre-record the interview if it helps with your scheduling. Forgive my lengthy text. Just doing my part and advocating for listeners to get the experience they are requesting. Thanks, Rashad Richey. That was my text. All right. We got more on the other side. News and Talk, 1380 WAOK.